there's two different ways to approach marketing. There's the slot machine method and there's the vending machine method. So a lot of people, when they first start up their marketing, they default to the slot machine method, which says, I'm going to keep putting coins in and putting coins in, and I'm going to hold my hands out and hopefully something falls out and brings me money, right? But what we want to do is use the data to get from the slot machine method to the vending machine method. And the vending machine method says you put a quarter in and you get a candy bar out every single time.
Hey, welcome back to the 5-Star Council podcast. This week we're talking with Chelsea Williams of the Core Solutions Group. Now, just because Chelsea's not a lawyer doesn't mean she doesn't have some great insights for us about how we can and should be marketing to our potential clients. Specifically, as a CPA, we're going to be talking about the things that lawyers hate the most: budgets, numbers, and key performance indicators, or KPIs. So while we don't get into the weeds on the numbers, there are a few important concepts that are worth highlighting right now and that we'll talk about more later. One concept I learned about recently, but Chelsea was good enough to bring up for us: the slot machine method of marketing versus the vending machine marketing method. Ultimately, we want to be in the vending machine mindset where we're putting something in and getting out a known expected return. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is by collecting data on who we serve and how we serve them. So breaking up how we're recognizing revenue instead of just firm income into things like probate income, estate planning income, simple divorces, complex divorces. Know where that data comes from so you can better target what you're doing and what your returns are. Finally, we're going to talk about how she onboards clients so that she knows she's getting the right people with the specific right mindset to work with her. There's a lot in this interview, so I'm going to jump over to that interview now. I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Council podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing in the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Hey, 5-Star listeners. Before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chatbots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front line so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5-STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Hey, Chelsea, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I am excited to talk to you because you are also a numbers person, which that's rare on the ground in lawyer circles because most lawyers went to law school to avoid numbers.
Right.
But we are going to be, to use a phrase we were saying minutes ago, we're going to be getting deep in the weeds on numbers and specifically how we should be using numbers to track marketing spend. So it's not only budgets, which are a top line item, but also how we can develop and think about KPIs or key performance indicators, because we want to know that we're not just throwing money into a black hole and not seeing some sort of return on it. And before we get into, well, this isn't a marketing show, it's no, we want to make sure that we're bringing in the right clients so that we can serve them the best that we can. And that means there's a good fit. And so ultimately, how do we tailor our budgets for KPIs to make sure that we're getting the right people in the door so we can take better care of them and ward off the wrong clients as early as possible?
Yes, absolutely.
So with that as a wind up, how do we do that, Chelsea?
Well, let me just say that, I love talking marketing numbers. I am not a marketing guru. I can't tell you exactly how Facebook pixel works or what the best strategy on LinkedIn right now is. But what I can tell you is how to tell if your marketing is actually working. And it's one of the line items that we spend a bit of time on. Like when we're going through with our clients, we spend extra time in certain areas of the budget, one of them being marketing. And the reason being is, like you said, we don't want to just throw money down a black hole. So I heard the terminology one time and I've kept with it. There's two different ways to approach marketing. There's the slot machine method and there's the vending machine method. So a lot of people, when they first start up their marketing, they default to the slot machine method, which says, I'm going to keep putting coins in and putting coins in, and I'm going to hold my hands out and hopefully something falls out and brings me money, right? But what we want to do is use the data to get from the slot machine method to the vending machine method. And the vending machine method says you put a quarter in and you get a candy bar out every single time. So the way that we do that, the way we help our clients do that is in their chart of accounts. When we budget for line items in marketing, we are separating every single expense on the budget. And so this is twofold, right? Because we have an external budget, but we need to monitor things internally. And what that means is, what is the lead conversion, right? So asking yourselves, how are people coming to us? Where are they seeing us? What type of a lead is it, right? Like, is this really our target market? Are we asking the right questions? Do we have a filtration system up to filter out those clients who are not going to be a good fit for us? Which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a type of client that is just not a good fit. And then looking at, what's the lifetime value of a client? So how much am I willing to spend to acquire a client based on how much they are going to spend with me over the lifetime that our average client works with us? So that's just a little bit of how we get started with that conversation.
Oh, no, I'm so glad that you brought up the slot machine versus vending machine method. I learned that time is a flat circle now, so it's either in the last week or the last 8 months. I can't tell, but certainly in the last year, learning to think about it that way, because it's part of the natural progression of your business. You start out, it's just you, and then at a certain point, you start bringing on more people. And one of the big metrics that I saw, or that became apparent to me, was yes or no, black and white, can I run payroll? Versus, that was early on, oh, thank God, I got past payroll again. Now I'm at the, okay, I know I can make payroll, but how much payroll do I have in reserve ready to go? And by how much am I going to know that? So it's going from a kind of on-off to here, let me get some actual dial-in numbers. So, to adapt to the slot machine, going from yes or no, I got something out, to I got the king-size Snickers or I got the Reese's Pieces, which are, whichever one you want, knowing that you can put it in and get back what you're looking for.
Yeah. And it's that clarity, right? And that's one thing that I love about numbers. Numbers don't lie, but there is such a thing as garbage in, garbage out. And you have to actually collect the data. So, when we're going through this budgeting exercise, because that's when we, working within our service specialty, that's when we encounter this conversation about marketing. So we're looking at the budget and we're saying, all right, you've got 5 different vendors you work with and a contractor that totals $3,500 a month. How much are you making? How many leads are you getting every single month from Google Ads or Avo or, Facebook, whatever you're putting money into? And so often people are like, well, I'm not sure. That's a good question, right? So you have to, in order to have clarity around the numbers, around the data, you have to collect it first. And sometimes that's as easy as an Excel spreadsheet that your receptionist fills out every single time. Sometimes if, there's a lot of attorneys out there that outsource to a call center. And, clients that we work with, I'm like, is that call center recording where these people are coming from so that you can clearly see where your funnels are developing?
Right. And so, in terms of collecting data, it's not just phone number, email address, but when you're saying where they're coming from, beyond phone number 713-123-4567, what sort of things should we be collecting?
Yeah, so I saw your blog on LinkedIn and it was wonderful. Or my friend Marcy referred me. She had a great experience with you. Or just a Google search. I typed in lawyers in, Birmingham, but wherever they found you, right? Because that's what you're spending your money on. That's what you're investing in to get in front of people. So you want to know what popped up in front of them or who whispered in their ear for them to reach out and call you.
Exactly. Right. It's just so what is working and how can you make that better. I mean, the other side of it is if they're coming from a prior client, you may have a different onboarding process, a different way of dealing with those people as they come in, just because they're a warmer lead than somebody who just found you on Google.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right. I mean, and the things I've found are, I mean, I'm sure this is not unique to me at all, but the clients I get who are warm referrals are not only easier to sell to and make an appropriate client for us, but I'm doing less education on how we work as opposed to the people who just find me on Google and they've done whatever they need to get in front of me. But even though we're not top, like if you do a estate planning lawyer in Houston, you're not going to pull me up. I'm finding that people are actually scrolling through reviews before they get to me. So, I'm not grabbing people just because I'm first. I'm grabbing the people who are going through and sifting out other higher ranked attorneys first.
Yeah, it's kind of like that trust factor, right? So what you're putting out into the world, and if you're being very diligent about asking for reviews, not just hoping that someone leaves you one, right? Like incentivizing people leaving you reviews. We live in a world where marketing is all about getting to know, like, and trust people. And I think attorneys out of most people should get that, because it takes longer for attorneys to know, like, and trust professionals to work with than it does the average Joe. It's just the nature. So, that's a great way to do it in your marketing is by, or even podcasts, YouTube videos, putting a face to it. So yeah, people come to you with this kind of pre-established trust because they see other people saying things about you and how they enjoyed working with you.
Right. And making sure they have some sort of experience with you beforehand. It's real easy to be another lawyer who the only interaction you have is your headshot on a website and your voice on a phone, but you can stand out and make it easier for people to know who you are. And more importantly, if they don't like your face or how you talk or your mannerisms, whatever it is, they have a reason to opt out before they've scheduled that call.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or that billboard on the side of the road. You always have to bring up billboards and when we're talking about marketing with law firms, right? And it's ironic because marketing is getting very intuitive and it's changing right before our eyes with COVID and everything that's going on. And it's just funny because that traditional lawyer billboard is the one where they're standing up tall and their arms are crossed. And if you know anything about body language, that is the worst position that you could possibly put off, especially in a marketing setting where you're trying to get people to call you.
Right. Well, we have to look like all the other lawyers, and every other lawyer has a scowling face because that means they're tough and smart versus,
That's right.
Differentiating yourself in the market. It doesn't matter if I'm tough and smart. I'm not going to court. So being tough doesn't necessarily help my clients. I'm here to guide them through something, not go fight somebody for them.
Yeah. And if to your point, if we bring it back to the client, so let's talk about family law, for example. Family law may not want the big bad pit bull lawyer, right? So in marketing, knowing your target market, knowing the psychology behind them. I follow a female attorney who specializes in estate planning, and you can tell by her website to the free materials that she has on her website, she knows exactly who holds the purchasing power in her market. It's the wives. They have kids. She has a free printable that you can attach to the car seat with information that's relevant to your children and your family. I mean, she has absolutely fine-tuned her message and catered to her target. And so, that's another thing to consider with marketing too. And like when we do our accounting and bookkeeping stuff, a lot of time we'll use what you call classes, where we break the revenue streams up and report them by class. Because marketing efforts, you're going to have a different message when you're speaking to people who are getting ready to get divorced versus people who are looking for some type of an estate planning service, right? So, I mean, that's another variation of tracking those metrics, being specific and tracking how much you spend within matter types and practice areas.
So when I hear you say classes, it makes me think of things I was working on today with part of my staff of going through our 300 plus matters in Clio and cleaning up all the practice areas so that we've got a much better idea of what kind of work have we done. We can then generate Clio is great. They generate CSVs, which means that puts it in Excel, which means I can add all sorts of fun
Play with
formulas. Yeah.
it.
2 weeks ago, I was writing scripts for Excel so that when it runs the retainer reports, it tells my internal bookkeeper, this is what you need to do with this. And just putting that all in one big formula using, I think it's IFS as the major one of like, if this number is this, then do this. And just having it there, outsourcing my knowledge into a CSV so that Bill, my internal account guy, knows what to do and going from there. But then, I mean, the real thing that set me down this trail was it's not all revenue. There are different types of revenue. I think we've got, there are certain ones where we're breaking out. It's not just estate planning and probate. It's estate planning married. And then we've got 5 different varieties of estate planning for each of those to know, oh, here's our average fee, not for estate planning, because that matters less than the people who are choosing our basic package. This is our average rate over time.
Yes. And again, it's that data collection, right? And we have so many clients that are on Clio. And if you're not using that matter tagging feature in there, you should be, because to know exactly where your revenue is coming from, it as specifically as possible, right? Because like you said, it's not just, you don't just have divorce. You've got contested with different situations. You've got uncontested with different situations. You really want to know where your money is coming from, right? So that you can know how to market, who to market, and even when, because there's seasonalities in a lot of practices. So if you know that your busy season is first quarter of the year every year, then you should be marketing fourth quarter of the prior year, right?
Right. And I know estate planning, normally Christmas time, once Thanksgiving passes, it slows down for December until mid-January. Now, who knows what's going to happen this year? We've seen things staying pretty steady year round. Like the normal break we'd have in August, we didn't get this year, which is fine. I have no idea how Christmas is going to go this year, but knowing to at least be thinking about it and having seen the patterns in the data of when we make our money, because the other side is running the revenue reports on a weekly basis instead of monthly, gets us much better data about when things are coming out instead of, once or 12 times a year we get some data on this. If we can chop it up finer, it's much easier to break it up and say, I've got to focus on this for the week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I've left you speechless.
I agree.
So there are 2 other things that I definitely wanted to follow up on, like the filtration system, I think is a great way of putting it. It's not that we don't want, or we can't take everybody because what would we do with them, but also making sure we're providing the better value to certain clients, and the ones who resonate the most with us. What sort of things have you seen with that?
So I can speak for myself, if that's okay, because I do this in my business. Over time, we've developed an intake form and it's very, very strategic. So the first point of contact is like a least resistance, right? So give me the bare minimum. I'll shoot you an email, and within that email, that is the intake form. So thinking about the data that you collect up front about your clientele. So in my example, with bookkeeping, tax, and accounting, it's very important that we understand a few key ideas of what's going on. Number 1, are your books caught up? Are your taxes caught up? What practice management system are you using? What accounting software are you using? Which payroll software are you using? And which document storage platform are you using? And we ask those 4 different areas very much so on purpose, because those all kind of intermingle. It's not just about the accounting software, right? So by the time people come to us, we already know pretty much exactly where they're at, what they're looking at, what they're not. So all of the pain points that attorneys typically face when it comes to the numbers, we are addressing that information, gathering that data up front so that we can have a really good conversation with it. So, for attorneys, that might be asking questions about where they're at in the process, if they have children involved, if they have assets involved. Like I use family law a lot because it's just very relatable. But, asking these key upfront questions, because, for example, if you know that you don't like to deal with messy divorces and you ask key questions subtly or however you see fit to kind of dig down to like, okay, is this going to be one of those like super hot mess divorces where they just want unrealistic expectations, like even asking, what are your expectations, right? To filter out, is this a good case for me? Because you don't want to be working on cases that you don't enjoy working on. And maybe the guy down the street or the gal down the street loves dramatic divorces and you can refer them over there as a better fit, right? So just getting that relevant information up front that'll at least give you an idea of whether or not they're going to be a good fit for you.
Right. And are you using any of those questions to strike people to just say, if you answer this question this way, we're probably not a good fit? I mean, I'm going to pick law firm management system. So, picking any of the major ones, Clio is the one that comes to mind because that's what I use. If you use that, you're fine. But if you use, Dave's law firm management system, we have experience with Dave's before, and we're not going to use that, or you're not using anything. We're willing, if you're willing to upgrade to one of the 5 or 6 that you like using. I mean, have you gone that far into it yet, or is it just let's figure out where you are?
That's a really good question. When it comes to the technical side of things, there's almost no client that we can't take on. Accounting software is very similar from platform to platform. We've never encountered one we can't figure out and get it to work. The deal breaker for us is mindset. So, if we run into firm owners who aren't really interested in growing or don't have that kind of trust factor or want to micromanage us in what we're doing, right? Because we're not employees, we're contractors. We're very good at what we do. We don't need you micromanaging us, right? And just like, attorneys don't want clients calling them every week. Did you do this? Did you do that? Telling you how to do your job. It's really the mindset that is kind of a deal breaker for us. And we are very upfront in our intake meetings, what we call like our let's see if we're a good fit meeting, that we are not the cheapest out there. We're not. So if you're looking for cheap, you should go somewhere else. And I've got 3 people you can call that are great cheap services, but we are very good at what we do. We are niched in the legal industry and we deliver. So that's why, our fees are higher. Yes, but there's a reason for that. And you are more than welcome to go somewhere else and find a more price effective service,
Right. If they're just looking for the outsourced, do this for me, and
Yeah.
they view it as a commodity, which, to be fair, lawyers get viewed that way. Just do this document for me. That's all I really need. That's fine. I mean, I had somebody a few weeks ago was like, here, we just need these 3 deeds. And I looked at their situation and they don't need 3 deeds. They need a bunch of other work. And that's fine. If you think that's all you need, my professional opinion is you need a lot more. You're only setting yourself up later on to have other problems. That's okay. You can go do it yourself. You can draft your deeds yourself. I can't do anything else other than tell you what I see and what I think will work for you. So to get back to what you were saying, having that mindset, how long did it take you to figure out that mindset was really the key to an up or down with a client?
So, I first want to say that it is absolutely common, and I did the same thing. So before I started Core Solutions Group, my business, one of my 2 businesses, I was vice president at a tax and accounting firm here where I live for 4 years. So I had some experience going through that before I ever started my business. So when I started Core Solutions Group, I came through the gate like we are not taking problem clients, right? Like I've had enough of this. And the reason for that is the previous firm that I was with, they were 100% commoditized. All of the clients wanted something for nothing. They never wanted to answer our questions, but then they would hound us when they wanted to go buy a house and they needed financial statements. And we've been asking them questions for 3 months and not gotten an answer, right? Like, so that was the experience that really opened up my eyes to, okay, time out. There has to be a better way. I love the work that I do. There has to be a way to work with people that I love working with as well. And I think it's something that almost every new business owner goes through, where when we open our doors, we will take any and everything that is willing to pay us, even if the money going out because of that job is more than the money that came in with that job, right? I mean, we go through this phase where it really doesn't matter. But then we start to think like, okay, cool, the money's there. Wait, now I have a choice. Now I don't have to deal with this type of problem client and I can actually say no. And here's how I can sense if they're going to be a problem client before they ever come through my door. It's this evolution.
Right. You get tossed out into your new business and effectively you're drowning. So you grab onto anything that you can in terms of work.
Yeah.
And that works for a while until either you adapt and realize what you should have, but far too many, the door lawyers take anything that walks through the door. They continue to struggle because they can't make any headway going in any particular direction.
Right. It's a good place to be when you get there.
I mean, it's nice when you get there, but it takes work. It's a concept. Somebody else I like and listen to has called the dip, where eventually you have to stop. You're still growing, but you find yourself stagnating while you have to build and retool for months, years, whatever it takes. And eventually you go, once you get things aligned again, then you start taking off. But it's this growth phase where it happens every now and again. You've had the success, but then you've got to grow through it, and you can't just pay for money on it.
Yeah, you got to catch up and evolve your internal SOPs, evolve your team. Yeah, you have to recalibrate every kind of growth phase.
Right. So as we start to close up our interview, one of the things I had down that I wanted to talk to you about, what are some of the pitfalls that people can get, shiny object syndrome or pitfalls in putting together these KPIs, and what should we be looking out for so that we don't get distracted on it?
I can say that, I have met quite a few attorneys who insist on doing it themselves to where they get wrapped up maybe a little too much. And this whole business ownership thing is about highest and best use of your time, right? And I can speak and attest to the value of creating your marketing voice, the messaging that you're putting out, your purpose, your mission, and how you verbalize that in your marketing strategy. But once you have that solidified, delegate it. And one of the reasons why I chose the legal industry as a niche is because in most but a few states, you have to be a licensed practicing attorney in order to own your own law firm, which means that you can't be like the guy or gal down the street who's a very passive owner and can spend 80% of your time working on the business and only 20% working in. It's typically reversed. Right. Therefore, attorneys have to become, if you want to scale successfully, you have to become master delegators. And so specifically speaking to marketing, what I see fairly often are the DIYers that don't want to delegate it and that dibble and dabble in so many different vendors before making one work to where they're just diluting it and not really paying attention to what is performing, analyzing it, and adjusting their budget to invest in what is creating that vending machine result.
Oh, that is a great idea. And just seeing the delegation has been one of my big things lately, and realizing how much more it allows me to do, because, you're saying 80-20 on a split of in versus on, but you can only grow so much, and it ends up being 80-80, burnout, failure, and destruction, that, you've got to grow beyond that initial stage. You have to learn to rely on other people to do things, even if it's putting most of, reducing things down to an Excel formula that can code in and tell people what to do.
Yes.
So I think that might be a great place for us to end for now. Chelsea, where can people find you if they're looking for more information from you?
Yeah, so I direct everybody to the website. It's yourcoresolution.com. And right there on the website, it has links to all of our social media outlets. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Our Instagram is so pretty. You all should go check it out. I love it.
Excellent. Chelsea, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcounsel.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcounsel.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.